Welcome to episode 6 of the BEPS project on the amateur. These are the 15 early piano sonatas written by Beethoven between 1795 and 1801, as distinct from his middle and late period sonatas for those of you in the know. Yes, it's true. Beethoven's works have been trisected into 3 periods. I'm just working on the early ones because one can only do so much, you know. Commentary, loosely organized at best, and imperfect but well-meaning execution of great classical music are what I bring to you on this day. I am but a sentient mass of cells, mostly water, who spends a great deal of his free time playing piano music written by dead Germans. Do you think the authorities will even let me turn that into a t-shirt? Oh, you think it would be a lousy t-shirt? Probably. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube, or like The Amateur Piano on Facebook, or, if you're feeling generous, you could toss me $1 or $3 into my tip jar on patreon.com/theamateur. I implore you to do all of these things. Today's piece, which is the second movement of Beethoven's Third Sonata, yet another scrumptious Beethoven slow movement, well, there could be no starker contrast between the bell-ringing exuberance of what came before and what you will hear today. It's an extraordinary piece, so intimate, so interior, probably best listened to with eyes closed. Forget Being John Malkovich. This piece is perhaps the earliest example of a 7.5 floor portal directly to the frontal lobe of Ludwig van Beethoven.
7.5. Thank you.
You know, I really wasn't expecting to be so vexed by this piece, Hercule. This keeps happening to me. It's not like I wasn't aware of this piece. I mean, I've read through it many, many times and thought, yeah, it's Beethoven. It has all the hallmarks, dramatic contrasts, modulations to remote keys, all that good stuff. But after practicing it and living with it for a few weeks, well, I have so many thoughts. First of all, for 1795, this is properly avant-garde stuff, meaning it's conceptually out in front of any music being written by others until maybe Claude Debussy 90 years later. And I'd go so far to say, actually, that while he was alive, the only person who could out-avant-garde Beethoven was Beethoven himself. Why do I say this? Well, I'm so glad you asked. So, okay, there are a few things about this music that I find to be extraordinarily ahead, unique, forward-looking. First of all, the opening theme, which has sort of a hymn-like construction, simple, except Beethoven's taken pains to make it sound and feel like it's free-floating, arrhythmic. Lots of silences between the musical ideas, phrases starting on half beats, which is just extremely unusual in the square corners world of the classical period. It's almost as if he's depicting a scene where he's plunking out the phrases on the piano and then pausing to scribble them down on paper. He's painting a scene of him composing, or at least that's my interpretation. Harmonically, it paints a picture of timidity, of insecurity, which aren't attributes you typically associate with Beethoven, right? And at the end of this opening section, instead of resolving to E major, as you expect, it resolves instead to E minor and takes us to a much darker place, where some of the musical ideas from before engage in a dialogue with this terrifying idea in the bass, accompanied by these gauzy gestures in the right hand. The technical challenge being that your left hand has to play both voices involved in the dialogue, in sort of a Gollum, Smeagol, back and forth. Super schizo. This cross-arm work is always a bit perilous, you know. And yes, I should have memorized it, but that would have taken another week, and I already know I'm going to need to memorize the next two movements. So get off my back. Oh, and sorry for another Tolkien reference, but this gesture, the gauzy one, also pretty far ahead of its time musically. It's pretty prominent in the Rivendell theme from the Peter Jackson movies. Just saying that you can connect the dots from that contemporary musical gesture all the way back to 1795. Now, isn't that fun? Another great effect here is that at the end of this, dark and gauzy dialogue section, he reintroduces the opening theme. Verbatim, note for note. But after what came before, it sounds different in our minds. Something's tangibly changed. Its meaning has shifted, deepened. Patina, rust, funk, whatever. It's going to be different for everyone. And then guess what? The antagonist in the earlier dialogue, the voice in the bass, is suddenly convinced. Perhaps reluctantly, derisively, but convinced nonetheless, or at least playing along. And then, poof, we're back in Beethoven's studio. Insecurities overcome, at least for the moment, where he's just sort of batting around the original theme, putting it in a different register, adding some syncopation, yada yada yada. I couldn't get past the idea that this ending is a depiction of a great mind struggling to figure out how to wrap it up. Thanks again to my wonderful patrons on Patreon for their generous support. If you'd like to join them and support the channel with your money, go to patreon.com/theamateur and go in for a few bucks. Subscriptions start at just $3 a month, and for that, you get content that is stripped free of all of these horrible exhortations to like and subscribe, in addition to a warm and all-encompassing sense of self-satisfaction. But should you not choose to become a patron, do like this video and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and like The Amateur Piano on Facebook. And share liberally with your friends. Whenever I say that, I think about moisturizer. Apply liberally.